off of Merrill Road. We live in the house where that Grandpa Meyer built in 1913. I have a funny little story that was a lot of fun to tell now, but back in the day it wasn't so much fun. When my kids were younger, I had done a lot of ceramics, and I did a beautiful angel, blonde-haired angel, dressed in a beautiful blue dress, white wings, the whole thing, ceramic. It was pretty good size, and I had it sitting on a shelf in the living room. Well, my son Steve broke it. I got home from wherever I was, shopping or work or whatever it happened to be at the time, and I walked in the house, and he didn't think I noticed it was gone, so he hid the pieces. I said, "What happened to my angel? Where's she at?" He goes, "Well, I broke her." And he gave me the pieces. Boy, I kind of ripped him a new one, gave him a really hard time, yelled at him and everything. And I told him one day that angel would be his. So I glued her back together and kept her out every Christmas time after that for a while, and then I put her in a box and forgot about her. This year, his birthday's in April, and in March, I decided to see if I could find that angel. So I went in our upstairs and I dug around in the Christmas stuff, and I found her, and she was filthy. She was stored in a cardboard box, not wrapped in anything, and of course dust gets inside a cardboard. So I took her out of the box, took her downstairs, wiped her down as best I could. You can't really use water on them. Wiped her down the best I could and went, "She's still filthy." So I got my paints out and I repainted her, let her dry, and then when his birthday came around in April, and we weren't able to get over there, both Steve and I weren't able to get over to their house to give him his birthday gift. I told my husband, I said, I am going to take his gift over to him. So I called one night and I said, "Hey Steve, are you going to be home tonight?" And he said, "Yeah, I am, but Billy Joe's not." And I said, "That's okay." I said, "If you don't mind, I'm going to stop in for a little bit for your birthday." And he said, "Okay." So I said, "I've got something for you." And he says, "Ma, you didn't have to get me anything." I said, "Just wait till you see what I've got you." And so I wrapped her all up nice in bubble wrap, put her in a closed container, plastic container, so she would not get dirt inside the box, and took her over there. Well, he opened the box. I said, "You got to open your present." So he opened the box up and he went, "Oh my gosh, the angel. I knew I'd get her someday." He remembered that time when he broke her. Gosh, the angel. I knew I'd get her someday. He remembered. And I said he'd get her. He says, "She looks awfully good for having been stored away." I said, "That's because I repainted her a couple weeks ago, because she was just really rot gut filthy." And you can't have an angel that's rot gut filthy. That's not pretty. So that's a kind of a funny story for here.
Do you have an extremely stupid story?
Extremely stupid.
Like something that you face-palmed?
Oh, I haven't. Right? Yeah. Well, we used to have a wood stove in the basement, and I was home alone. I was going down, and this was only a few years ago, and I was going downstairs to put wood in the basement in the wood stove. And Grandpa was at work, of course, he worked nights. Coming up the steps, I tripped up the steps, not falling down. I fell up the steps, which is, a klutz trait. We fall up the steps, we don't fall down them. My hand went between the two of the steps against the backboard, and I tore the heck out of my rotator cuff and had to have surgery. But before that surgery happened, I was at work, and it was out of the sling, and I was covering the lunch hour. Another gal was with me. Her name was Darcy. Nobody was in the office. It was the lunch hour. This little black man came from around the one end of the hallway. And I asked Darcy, I said, "Do you know who that is? I thought everybody's gone." She said, "I thought everybody was gone too, and the back doors are always locked." So he walked up, had to walk right past the counter where I sat, and he stopped at the door, And he looked up and he nodded his head and he turned around and smiled at me and he came over and he said, "The Lord asked me to stop and speak with you." And I said, "Okay." And he says, "May I take your hand?" And I said, "Sure, my name is Sheila." And I reached out with my left hand because it was my right shoulder I had injured. And he said, "No, your right hand." So I stood up because I could not raise my arm high enough to reach across the counter. I stood up, I reached out, he took my hand, and when he did, an electric shock, ice cold shock, shot up my arm and settled in my rotator cuff. And he said, "The Lord asked me to speak with you." He said, "Your personal pain will end soon, and your loved one will rest in the arms of the Lord before long." And he did not, I didn't know the guy. My mom was in the last month of her life. Didn't know this was going to happen. Darcy and I weren't talking about it, so he couldn't have overheard us. And then he took Darcy's hand. He said, "May I take your hand?" And she said, "Okay." And he said, "And what's your name?" She said, "Darcy." And he says, "Well, Darcy, the Lord asked me to speak with you also. He wants you to know that your loved one will be home safe by the weekend." Her husband worked storm control, and he was out of state because there was, in Ohio, there was really bad, or Indiana rather, there was really bad tornadoes. And he came home safe, but several of his co-workers were injured.
Wow.
And that was we thanked him, never saw him after that, and I call him my little angel.
Now, I remember when you tripped in the computer room and busted your head through a wall.
Yeah, I did that. But I was making the bed. And that was our spare room at the time. I had a twin-size bed in it against the wall. And I was making the bed, and I had these bedroom slippers on that were boot-style bedroom slippers. And of course, you can't really, they have a solid sole, so you can't really feel what's under your feet that way. And I made the bed, put the bedspread on it, and started to walk away. And the bedspread was, my left foot was under the bedspread holding it down. My right foot stepped on top of the bedspread, and when I went to step over it, couldn't lift my left foot, not realizing it was under the bedspread holding it down. And that threw me forward, and I hit the wall and put a football-sized hole in the wall that Grandpa had to fix. He wasn't too happy about it, but luckily it went between two studs, otherwise I'd be dead by now.
Oh.
So, yeah, it would have killed me instantly, or at least broken my neck, and I'd be paralyzed.
So miracle, but klutz miracle.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
Now, we've already talked about scary stuff earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any poltergeist activity, stuff that would
Float around or
Yeah.
fly around the room or be thrown around or anything like that?
Yeah.
No.
Who I remember hearing mom, I think it was on mom's side actually. She told me one time that one of her friends, or no, it was a family member, in his house. It's extremely haunted. It's near a graveyard
Okay.
or cemetery, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a cross on the wall. The cross turned upside down on its own.
Now that might have been my brother Carl's house, and
Oh,
that was not
that
near
might-
the cemetery.
That might be the right one then.
Uh-huh.
It's been a while since mom told me the story.
Right.
His dad wasn't there. He was at work.
He lived in that house that I showed you on Stevens Road. Well, the one that I said my brother built.
Yeah.
Okay. And he had 3 kids, and they were all at home, teenagers. And my nephew Charlie had his room in the basement. Had a bedroom down there, and he wanted his own space, and teenager, and so his room was in the basement. And he went downstairs, and the cross that they had, and the picture of Christ that they had on their wall by the stairwell, the picture turned backwards and the cross flipped upside down.
Ugh. Okay,
And
then it was.
so he was, totally freaked out about that. And my brother got remarried, divorced from his first wife, and got remarried. And his second wife had a son. His name was Jimmy, and he said that there was somebody in the house, and his name was Charlie. And my brother Carl said, "Well, Charlie's not here." And he said, "No, not my brother Charlie, a different Charlie." And he says, "Well, what's this Charlie look like?" He said, he's little and he's scary. I'm getting goosebumps. He's scary looking and he's not nice. And my brother told him, he says, well, when you see him again, you tell him to leave and not come back in the name of Jesus Christ. And he said, so one day him and Jimmy were home alone, and Jimmy said that Charlie was there, and he said, you get out of my house, Charlie, and never come back in the name of Jesus Christ. And he was like 5 years old, so he wasn't making this stuff up. And he said, he just went through the window. And so my brother picked him up, they went to the window, and Jimmy was laughing, and he said, he's running down the road looking back, and he's not coming back. So there is power in the name of our Lord, and there is power in speaking that name.
Yeah. Let me think. I mean, a lot of my experiences personally, of course, were McGregor House.
Yes, that was a spooky house.
Yeah. And I actually want to go back there sometime. And I'm like, I want to do some investigation there. I know, like, it's called, like, antagonizing spirits there. And I'm like, it's not antagonizing if you're questioning them. Yeah. And there's a lot of things that... Antagonizing is where you're picking at them and, like, show me what you can do. And then you get thrown against the wall possessed. Yeah. But I would like to try to make contact with them and ask them why they're not at rest. And, you know, try... not. I know that they're not... They're probably demons. Definitely probably demons.
Oh, yeah.
There's no way to put them at rest. They're going to be demons for them. But at least expel them from the house.
Right. Yeah. That little Charlie, he was a demon.
Yeah.
You know, he looked like an evil elf is what little Jimmy described him as.
Mom could also be a time traveler.
Really?
Because she could have been the one that's the evil elf.
Oh, she could not. She did not like that.
No. Yeah.
She's a believer.
But she's scary.
Well, she's a believer.
Let's see. There was Mom said there was talking in the closet, but it was like mumbles, like
where?
In the McGregor house, in the closet next to her bed.
Your house in McGregor Road really scared me. I was nervous being there, and I was okay when the whole family was there.
Yeah.
But one morning, your mom had to go pick your dad up at work and called me to see if I could come and stay because you kids were real little.
Yeah.
And I said, okay. So I drove over there, and I went into Larissa's room, which was the scariest room in the house.
Nick's was a little bit scary, too.
Was it? But I think this room just scared me.
Yeah.
It was a scary room. I did not like the closet in that room. I got there, and your mom's cousin was there, Noreen's son. I don't remember what his name is.
Herbie?
Yeah. He was there, and he was sleeping on the couch. I'm like, why am I here if Herbie's here? But she... You know, he's a little different, and she didn't really want to leave him alone. So I went into Larissa's room, and it was really early in the morning, you know, because it would have been a third shift time, so it was really, really early. And I went into Larissa's room to sleep. I couldn't sleep. I laid on that bed, and I stayed awake because I had the eeriest feeling that there was something or someone in that room.
Yeah.
I did not.
That's where I had my paranormal experience with the walkie-talkie. Have you heard that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's the one right there in that room.
Wow. That's freaky.
That room is the most haunted in the house, I believe. We had an attic that made noises by itself. The TV came home from school one day. 666 was on the channel. Let's see what else happened there. Just Christian could make up a lot of things. Like that walkie-talkie story. I remember, Dad remembers, Mom remembers. He was not in the room. We don't know where he was. I don't remember exactly. I know he was not in that room. He says he had the other walkie-talkie in the closet. And I'm like, that's not true, because Dad turned the walkie-talkie around. There were no batteries in it.
Yeah, exactly. There were no batteries in it.
And I mean, he'd be like, well, I was talking really loud. I'm like, we would have heard your voice. Your voice, you can't throw your voice.
But, you know, he might have been saying those things to keep himself more calm, too.
But he still thinks it to this day.
Well, yeah, but when you implant something in your brain that way, in your mind, that's the way to keep yourself safe. You're going to believe it to this day. You're going to believe it actually happened.
Yeah, you're going to trick yourself.
Right.
Also, when we slept in Mom and Dad's room, my wall was closest to the door, closest to like the wall, like through the wall there would be the bathroom and the kitchen. I would hear scratch, scratch, scratch on the other side. Chris would be like, Timmy, was that you? And I'd be like, yeah, because I'm like, if he freaks out, I'm going to freak out.
Right.
So I lied to him and said, yeah, that's me. but just so he wouldn't freak out, because he's one of those people who, I mean, if it's paranormal, I'm like, okay, I mean, great.
Mm-hmm. We were at my brother's house in South Carolina visiting Uncle Brad when he worked down there and lived down there with them. And my nephew Chester, my sister's boy, was there, and he's the same age as Uncle Brad. And because we had a lot of family there, and they had my brother and his wife had some friends over, we decided to take family pictures, you know. So Tennille, who was the female friend, she says, well, I'll take the pictures. And so she started taking the pictures, and we were looking through them, and we went different places. We stood on this side of the room. We stood on that side of the room.
Oh, is this the picture with like the little army guys inside the guitar?
Well, it kind of looks like that, but it's actually a fence row.
Oh.
But we were looking, you know, at the pictures afterwards. My brother and I stood over by the door and, you know, taking pictures over there together and all that kind of stuff. And we were looking at the pictures before we went upstairs, and I said, what is that? There must have been something on the lens. And Tennille looks at the lens. She said, no, there's nothing on the lens. She said, but look at it. There's several of them. There were orbs over our heads.
Oh.
And they moved when we moved. They moved to the other side of the room. They moved to where my brother and I were standing by the door. They were completely over our heads. Nothing but orbs. And they were really pretty, though, you know, just orbs.
Yeah.
And so because we saw those, we decided to take pictures all over the house. And I knew that they had paranormal experiences in that house. So we went upstairs, and Tennille's taking pictures of all the rooms upstairs and everything. And there's this little closet that is under the eaves, so it's got a slanted roof.
Yeah.
And my brother had nothing hanging on the one side of the room. He had his hunting equipment in there, and his bow and arrows and all that kind of stuff, gun equipment, all that, tents and sleeping bags and what have you. And when I got home and I got all the pictures developed, you could see all the orbs. But in that upstairs room where all the hunting equipment camping equipment stored, on the wall there looked like a picture of a guitar, or looked, you know, like a guitar hanging there, the shape of a guitar anyway. So I called him and I said, Chet, you got anything hanging on that wall that's upstairs, you know, when you first walk in and it's in your storage room and it's to the left on your left-hand side? He says, no, I don't put anything on that side. And I said, well, I've got a picture that says differently. He says, what? I said, yeah, it looks it's in the shape of a banjo or a guitar or something. And I said, I looked at it through a microscope or a magnifying glass, and I said, you can actually see the soldiers in their Civil War uniforms. Some are sitting on the ground with their feet underneath the fence, the last fence row, bottom fence row. Some are standing up, leaning on the fence. And I said, you can actually see, and you can see the fence row going down the handle. Well, I would call the handle of the guitar, the neck of the guitar.
Yeah.
You can actually see the fence row going down that.
Oh.
It's really, he said, send me a copy. So I sent him copies of all the pictures. So I've got them somewhere in the house, and he's got a set down there. So
that's eerie but cool.
it is. And my pastor told me one time, he said, sometimes the veil opens up between this world and the next, and we get a look at the battle between good and evil. And that does happen sometimes. But this was more of and I told him, I said, but this was more like the Civil War is still going on down there. They don't know it, and they're still fighting it. And he said, and that's a possibility as well, because those who are killed don't know that the war ended.
Yeah.
So they're still fighting it.
That's eerie, but once again, cool.
I know, right?
Now, I'm going to ask you a question about ghost hunting,
Okay.
which is, I believe it's not evil. I mean, if you're using a Ouija board in it, 100%.
Evil.
Yeah. But I'm talking like just asking for signs that they're there to make sure that they're there for, so that you're not just making it all up. Where would you draw the line on that? Like,
I'd draw the line at using a Ouija board.
yeah, so would I.
Definitely wouldn't use one of those.
Now,
I've used one before. It's not fun.
I haven't. My friend owns one, and I said, she's like, I want to do it in a graveyard. I'm like, there's a huge rule. You don't do it in a graveyard. It's also that's a place where respect. There's dead people, and they're not doing anything to harm anybody. Yeah, you do it. You can do it at your house where.
And then it brings it in, and you can't get rid of them.
I'm like, you can do that in your own time.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
Exactly.
Mom's already done
So
that.
you need something attached to you and taking it home.
Yeah.
Because that can happen.
Yeah. And then there's spirit boxes where they talk through it.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the
a
walkie-talkie story.
amplifier or
Yeah.
a speaker.
Would you consider that bad? I think it's a way for them to talk
I
to you.
think it's a way of communication. I don't consider it good or bad. It's kind of neutral to me.
Yeah.
So I don't really have an opinion on that other than I think it's neutral. My dad had an aunt who was my great-grandma's sister, and she was a medium. And she would hold seances, and she actually brought spirits back, whether they were good or evil, I don't know. But my dad sat in on one of them, and he said he'd never do it again.
I can't blame him.
It was too much for him. And her son, my cousin Melvin, which would be my dad's cousin, my second cousin, I guess, he actually checked himself into a mental hospital because he felt that there were evil spirits trying to harm him. And he didn't know if it was his mind going bad on him or if it was from his mother, who was the medium, and brought things back that shouldn't have been brought back.
Yeah.
Not intentionally.
Yeah.
But they came with the good. So that's kind of what happens when you bring back the spirit world. You open that door to good and evil.
Now, I've used...
What I would say is don't open that door.
Yeah.
Under any circumstances, whether you are the spouse of a deceased one and you're missing him or her so badly that you want to bring them back just for a moment, don't do it. Let them rest in peace. Because whenever you open that door to intentionally for good, intentionally bad will come through as well. Don't think that you can cleanse your home in any way but with a minister or a priest, because they have to bless it, or they have to bless you in order for you to take over and bless your home, to clear it. There are people who do clear homes. My daughter-in-law Penny is one of them. She can clear a home of evil, and she has done it before. It's pretty scary to hear her talk about it. So there are people out there who can do it, but just be careful when you mess with that stuff, because it is not good to open that door at all.
Yeah.
No matter how much you miss somebody. When my mom passed away, I missed her terribly. When my dad passed away, I missed him so much that there were times when I felt like he was going to pull in the driveway at any moment. I felt his presence, but it wasn't that I brought him back, because I would never open that door. I had experiences with a Ouija board when I was a kid.
You know, I've never heard the experiences, so...
Yeah, my folks got his kids all, one to share. It was a group family gift for Christmas one year, because they were big. They'd just come out, and I was playing it with my cousin, Jeannie, and it was hunting season. My dad was going to go hunting across the road that afternoon and evening, and I asked it, I said, will my dad get a deer? And it spelled out, no, he will get dead. So we put it away. And I got chills again. We put it away, and I told my dad, I said, Daddy, don't go hunting. Don't go hunting tonight. It says you're going to die. Don't go hunting. And because I was so upset, whether he believed it or not, I was so upset that he did not go hunting that night. And he lived till he was almost 88. So that was when I was a child. And because of the other experiences that we had in the house, he didn't know whether it was the Ouija board bringing him back, because that door had been opened by playing with the Ouija board. I don't know how he got rid of it or what he did with it, but it disappeared from our home, and we never played with it again, and I will never buy one, and I always tell my kids and grandkids, don't mess with them. They're not a good thing.
Now, some people say that, well, it's true that when you say goodbye, it's not goodbye, because how's it going to clear it? It's there. You brought the presents, and it's going to stay there.
The only thing that's going to clear it is the name of Christ.
Yeah. A lot of people are like, well, it's actually your mind just doing it, and you're controlling it because you're the one that's holding it. But there has to be something controlling your, like...
There has to be something controlling that triangle.
Yeah.
that you
The
put
pleasure.
your fingers on.
It's called
Because I wouldn't want my dad killed in a hunting accident ever. I never would have wanted that as a child. I never would have thought of that as a child. That's just not something that you think about.
yeah.
So it came out, and another time, my neighbor, who was my best friend, Chris, we were playing it, and my cousin Frank was there, and neighbor down the road, Daryl, and his brother Jimmy, and they had a cousin named Tom. Well, I never told anybody that I had a crush on Tom, and this I was probably 10 years old, and Daryl wanted to know who my boyfriend was, or who I had a crush on, and so I wasn't going to ask the question. So Chris asked it. I said, I don't want any answers to that. So Chris answered it, or asked it, and she didn't know. I hadn't told her either. She was my very, very best friend. And it spelled out Thompson Sisson. And when it started spelling the last name, I took my hands off. I said, nope, we're not finishing that name. And Daryl goes, I know who it is, because it was his cousin.
Yeah.
So, when it started spelling the first name 3 letters out, he knew. Sinsisson, S-I-N-C, it's going to be Sinsisson, so.
So back to the closing words. Do you have any other things you want to say? Because you said get a pastor to bless the house.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have anything else?
Believe that there is a battle between good and evil going on 24/7 in this world, because the angels, Michael, all of them, the angels that are the battling angels, they are battling the evil. They are the good battling the evil. Believe that is actually happening, and that if you mess with that, you're not going to be happy. It's going to be a scary experience, and you are not going to be happy. Just don't mess with the occult. Don't bring it in. Believe in Christ. Believe in the things that He has promised us, but don't mess with the other side, because that devil takes any opportunity he can to get into our lives.
Yeah. And that's it, I think, right?
That's it.
Okay. So if you guys enjoyed, subscribe, like, comment, and share. And if you want Grandma back on, let me know in the comments below.
Grandma's incognito, wearing her dark glasses.
Yeah. Bye, guys.
Bye.